Okay, folks, I want to welcome you to the next session in this wonderful day, this extraordinary engagement. I'm absolutely delighted to join the students and to host and moderate at least this conversation. This is one of my favorite days in the calendar at NYU. I'm the academic director of our programs here in marketing and PR in the Division of Programs in Business at the school. Michael Diamond, and it's wonderful because it gives us a chance to celebrate the hard work and ingenuity of our students, as well as bring them together and bring a community together of practitioners and students and faculty, which is at the very heart of, I think, what makes NYU SPS distinct. So it's an absolute my delight and pleasure, and our time together is with Kristen McHugh. I want to welcome Kristen. She's the Senior Vice President of Verizon in marketing, and also an NYU alum. So welcome back to NYU. So
thank you so much.
Pleasure to see you. I guess, you know, I'm always fascinated at some level with people's kind of journey. You know, I wonder, of course, few of us woke up one day and said I wanted to be, you know, the head of marketing at Verizon, or you know, dreamed of being such as a young woman somewhere, as a Villanova undergrad even. So I wonder if you could just share with students a bit your journey, you know, from undergrad and to what is effectively one of the senior marketing leaders of one of the biggest or most well-known brands in America. So.
Sure, thanks so much, and thank you so much for having me today. It's an honor to be here with you, Michael, and with all of the students. As Michael said, I am an alumni of NYU. I got my executive MBA from Stern, and it was one of the great honors of my life, and really happy to be here with all of you. So my journey. So as Michael said, I went to Villanova undergraduate, and when I went into school, I went into the communications school, thinking I wanted to go into journalism, not really sure exactly what I wanted to do. My really good friends were in the business school, and they were taking classes like accounting and finance and all of those things. And I was like, oh, that's not really for me, the business world. But communications felt like some, you know, an area where I could really thrive. And my junior year, I took a public relations course, and everyone wanted to take this course because the professor was amazing. I'm sure you guys all have those professors. I'm sure one of them is the one speaking with me today. And he was just a professor that got you to learn so much about the public relations space. And for me, I learned so much about branding and about brands and the importance of brand, and I fell in love. And quickly became an intern, and I'm not going to go through all of my my steps from then until now, but I think it's important because I had an internship at a PR agency in Philadelphia called the Brownstein Group, and it was incredible, and I learned so much. And while I was doing PR, which I really enjoyed, I started to saunter over to a group of folks who were working in advertising. And I'm like, what's happening over there? This seems really interesting and really fun, and about brands, and something I could really sink my teeth into. And then started to do a double internship, and then got an internship the next year in the advertising group, and really fell in love with advertising and knew I wanted to work at an advertising agency. I researched every agency in New York City. I wanted to work for Young and Rubicam at 285 Madison, which I did. Started as an executive assistant on the US Army business, and learned so much so quickly. And throughout my time on the agency side, I really got to learn about different industries and different brands, and understand marketing from an advertising perspective, which was so important, and learning how to work with different people within the agency ecosystem, but really learning from my clients as well. And that's where I really got the most out of my experiences, understanding that it wasn't just about the ad for Toys R Us, it was also about the inventory flow, and really understanding the complexities of the business. And that's when I decided to go to McCann. I left Y&R to go to McCann to work on the Verizon business because I wanted to understand more of technology. I'd worked on sort of fast-paced, high-volume accounts, and I thought this would be a good blend of understanding technology, but also bringing that retail side. And that's when I decided to go back to NYU, because I wanted to understand the broader business. Again, where I thought my friends were in the business school wasn't interesting to me. Now I'm like, no, the business is interesting and I want to learn more. And that's what I did at NYU while I was at McCann, and really understood the broader business side of things. And that's when I moved after I graduated, after a couple of trials in other areas. I went to Verizon. I've been at Verizon almost 10 years. I've been in various marketing roles, and I've done everything from very specialized marketing roles, whether that's leading social media or sponsorships, or leading FiOS and B2B, and now leading marketing activation across consumer, business, and brand, which has been a great way and a great culmination of the work that I've done to date.
It's a fantastic journey, and a book length of a journey. It's amazing. And I think we'll probably come back to some of those topics, especially, the relationship between marketing and PR, or, the brand and agency world. And I'm sure those are the kinds of questions that our students will have. It also gives me a chance to put in a shameless plug. I think, as you know, we're launching a new executive master's program ourselves in marketing and strategic communications. And I think many folks like you reach a point in their career when they say, I need to find a missing jigsaw piece or find the next level. Or so, the theme of this topic, at least, or the whole conference, is this return to authenticity and this path to authenticity. And I thought perhaps we could alight on that, though, through this question of marketing activation, because that's something you mentioned, and I think is a very interesting space. And I really just wondered if you, for the record, could sort of say what you think marketing activation represents, and frankly, how that's changed over the last several years, how it's influenced your thinking and your practice.
Sure, absolutely. So excited about the theme of the overall day, and so important as we think about authenticity within marketing and for brands, and we'll certainly hit on that. But to answer your question, my role, we developed our group in marketing activation in the past year. And what it really brings together is leading the strategy, and then all of the touch points. If you think about integrated marketing, which all of you guys here do, it's about how we bring together all of the touch points of marketing and how we activate on our specific strategy and specific briefs. And it is bringing in integrated communications. It's working with our specialists in creative and in media and engagement and in PR, and stitching together the entire plan that can help us deliver our business goals. So our team owns the upfront strategy. We work the entire marketing plan and then own the results to make sure that we're delivering for the business. So all of the work that we do, as all of you know, is really about how we deliver how we deliver on business goals, and how we use creativity and marketing to deliver on our business goals.
Yeah, and I think one of the questions, that at least I think is inherent in this discussion about authenticity and marketing activation is what I imagine is a much more significant use of technology, perhaps, and curating a lot of those touch points, and just even managing all those touch points through the use of technology. And I guess the question, and it's been discussed a little bit today, is there some conflict in a sense between the ambitions you have around personalization or carrying an authentic voice, and the use of technology and the use of data, etc. What do you see as potential concerns, or how do you navigate those things?
It's a great question, and it's so important, and one that we talk about all the time at Verizon. So our brand equities at Verizon are trust and innovation, and those permeate everything that we do. As we think about strategy, that's always at the core of whatever we're developing, whatever our go-to-market plans are. So as we think about data, critically important. We have customers who pay us a monthly bill, who rely on us for their network, and who do many, many more things with us at Verizon. And we need to know them. So we need to make sure that we're using data to speak to them in a way that's one-to-one. But they also trust us with so much of their data. If you think about all of the things that go through the network, they want to make sure that they are trusting Verizon. Critically important. So as we think about it, it's about how we think about the transparency and control that our customers have with how we can leverage their data. We're very overt and transparent about how we use first-party data to make sure that we're making a personalized experience for our customers, but that we are not selling data to third parties. And it's really important as we think about data leaving our hands and getting into someone else's. That's what gets so challenging for people when their data gets out of the company that they trust into someone else's, into someone else's, into someone else's. And how do we make sure that we're controlling that for our customers? So we are very overt about our policies. We are very serious about it at Verizon to make sure that we are protecting our customers and that we are really delivering trust throughout everything that we do. So we want to make sure that we have a robust digital practice for sure, but again, that we're creating that trust and that transparency with our customers.
Yeah, and I thought, when we chatted before in preparation, you had this wonderful way of speaking about that. It's this idea about trust populating the entire marketing and comm system, ecosystem at Verizon. And I imagine that's quite a challenging thing to do, and sometimes doesn't work. So if you're comfortable sharing, were there times where you thought you hit a home run, or times perhaps where it didn't quite go according to plan? And what did you learn from that?
Sure, absolutely, and it's really hard. And look, our customers trust us with their network. And if you think about just what we're doing right now, right? So in the past 2 years, people have relied on networks more than ever. And they trust us to have the connection that are allowing these communications and for people to learn and to do their work. So that trust is critically important. But it does need to connect to everything. It's trust in the network. We're America's most reliable network. But it also needs to be about every interaction we have with customers. And when you look at some of our promos, and this is ones that we have done well and areas that we need to make sure that we're focused on, because if we put a promotion out there that says, you buy one phone, you get one phone free. If someone goes to the store, but you have to add a line, or it's really only for new customers, we're then breaking that person's trust. So we need to make sure that we're thinking about how we're creating that trust through every touch point that we have, and that we're building the trust with our customers so that they can rely on us for their network and also for all of their needs. So that's critically important. We talk about it as, if you think about a piece of paper, right? And you wrinkle that paper. That's if you break someone's trust, you're wrinkling that paper. You can try to flatten it back out, but it's never quite the same. So making sure that we don't break our customers' trust at any point is so critically important, because it's really hard to earn that back. So that's something that we need to think about through everything. And it's really hard as we think about our category. There's a lot of touch points with our customers, and we need to make sure that we're bringing that transparency. If the network goes down, how do we make sure that we're overt about, this is what happened, this is what you can expect, and we're working on it, we're on it, and we have your back, and we're trying to build that back up. So it is, look, there are times when things are gonna go wrong, but how do we make sure that we are in front of it? And again, that we're trying to quickly build that trust so that we don't break the trust with our customers.
I think as I confessed to you, and probably some of my students know, I sat in a fairly similar position as you did, but over with the other guys, with the cable guys.
One hold it against you.
And what I always found fascinating, and I would ask you, is so many of these issues that you've described are related to how to build and maintain trust, deliver on your promises, but they're through systems that are out of your control as a marketer. Yes, I mean, you don't control the network, you may not control the customer service interaction or what the tech does in someone's home, etc. And those touch points, which are critical, are also the ways by which you're ultimately judged as a brand. So what role do you play, or does the marketing team perhaps more broadly, in sort of setting out the agenda for what trust means and how that looks like very operationally, like outside of your field of marketing and comms? And again, what kind of lessons do you think we can learn for what a modern marketer needs to do and know and think? Absolutely.
And it is, it's really important that our equities permeate throughout the company. So as we think about trust and innovation, those are our brand equities, not just as we think about marketing. So really important that everyone in our company understands what we need to deliver for our customers. That's part of our credo. That's part of how we show up every day and how we show up on behalf of our customers. But it is how, from a marketing standpoint, how do we make sure that we are transparent? So if there is a network outage, how do we make sure we don't hide behind it? Are we on social media talking about it, making sure our customers are clear about it and understand that we're working on it? They understand things are going to go wrong. They want to make sure that we're talking to them, that we're not hiding from it, and that we're communicating with them in a way that they understand, and that they can understand that one, we're working on it, two, when is it going to be fixed? And then how are we going to create that value back to them? So that's what's important. People forgive you if they know that you're being transparent, if they understand that you have their back. If we hide from it or we don't tell them about it, that's where we get into trouble. And part of the challenge is, if you think about Fios, if something goes out, it's like, how do you get in touch with them? Well, how do we make sure that we can text them on their phone? Well, if the wireless phone is that, how are we communicating? How are we using all of our channels through social media, the way that we can interact with our customers to let them know? And that same goes with the stores, where if you think about customer service, we have so many different touch points, so important that we're bringing that trust in, that customer service is trained in the same way that our markets are. We have people in people's homes, whether they're installing Fios. So we need to make sure that everyone believes and upholds the equities that we have for the brand through every touch point. Critically important.
I think this might speak to one of the points that's been made a few times during the day, actually, this idea about the role of the marketer as sort of an orchestrator or a translator, or, which I find really fascinating. I think, we probably weren't historically trained that way. We were trained in the function of marketing, and then we all got very good at digital and things like that. But clearly the marketer is taking on a much bigger role in the company, which is a good thing. With the closer we are aligned to growth and the real business value, creation, that's a good thing.
No question. And we are so connected to all of the groups within Verizon. So whether that is network, so understanding how the network's built so that we can explain that to our customers. And if we're showing engineers that we're being authentic in the way the network is built and what we're delivering for customers, making sure that we're super close to the business so that we understand every dollar that's spent, how do we ensure that that's driving the business outcomes? So getting very close to the business units and what we need to deliver. And as you said, an orchestrator, across all of the touch points and all of the functions within Verizon. If you think about the role that we play, we're spending time with our group in security. How do we understand our security products so that we can explain them to our customers? How do we spend tremendous amount of time with legal, as many of you I'm sure do as well, about how do we make sure that we're clear, that we're being truthful in the way that we're communicating to our customers. So we spend time with everyone within Verizon, and marketing really does play that orchestration role. I think that's a great way of saying it.
Yeah, I wonder these days, people always, and I'm sure we'll come back to this in questions, that people want to know, how to become a successful CMO, or, what skills do I need, or should I take the Google AdWords certification? They're very concrete questions, which are genuine and understandable. But in some sense, it strikes me that more and more the answer is things like to be flexible and intellectually curious, and they're much broader mindsets, and indeed Andisa was just talking about a model around mood sets as well. So even this idea of managing self, I guess, but so I think we have time actually to sort of me sneak in a little question here, which is I'm always fascinated by how business people generally stay current, and how do you, I'm sure, like me and many others on this call, including our students, receive hundreds of emails a day, each probably claiming in our mailbox to have the perfect solution to the CRM or the CDP or the whatever it is. How do you pass through the sort the wheat from the chaff, the noise from the signal from the noise, and all of that? What's your practice? What's your daily practice even?
It's a great question, and it's great for all of the marketers on this call. And I'm sure I can learn a ton from all of you as well. And for me, you talked about it when you think about what really makes a great marketer, and it's about being curious. So curious about the business, understanding the business as well as our business partners, understanding the network as well as our network engineers. So for me, it's about how we make sure that we really understand the business. For marketing, it's the same thing. How do we make sure that we're staying current on what's next as you think about digital practices? Where are cookies going? What is a cookieless environment going to look like? What does that mean in terms of how our digital economy is going to change? How do we make sure that we're staying one step ahead of that? So it is about reading everything I could possibly can. You're right about separating the wheat from the chaff, but also how do we rely on our agency partners who work with so many other brands? What happens also within Verizon is you can get very siloed into our category and thinking about, well, what is T-Mobile doing? What is AT&T doing? What are the cable companies certainly doing? But how do you make sure you're widening your aperture, learning from agencies, learning from those around you about great marketing practices, about new technologies? Our agencies do a phenomenal job bringing us new technologies, and how do we trial things? How do we try things in market, see what that can look like? So it is, we do a ton of discovery. We used to do offsites to make sure that we are learning about new things. Now it's a lot of certainly virtual discussions, but thought leadership, it's about having talks with people outside of our industry so that we can learn and we can apply new things to our category. Critically important.
Fantastic. I want to sort of pivot us back to authenticity a little bit and perhaps approach it again somewhat orthogonally, because we'll talk more and more about it. But some of the conversations that have been very interesting about the definition and of a brand and the purpose of a brand, including the discussion of does a brand represent who we are or I am as a company today, or does it represent who we aspire to be? I think the inherent critique is, if a brand represents who you aspire to be, then at some level that's not sincere, because you're not really delivering those things right now. So I wanted to ask you that question in the context of some of these new technologies, and I know you personally have been paying a lot of attention to this sort of hype or the expectations that can get created around new technologies like 5G, for example, and so help us understand how you pass that in, how you thread in, how you balance. You've got to build this aspirational brand. You've got to stay current with technology. We learned that, and you can't be silent on 5G, et cetera. But how do you do that in an authentic way so that you're not overclaiming?
Sure. Great question. And a lot of things in there. So as we think about our purpose at Verizon, we create the networks that move the world forward. Now there's a lot in there as we think about how we create these networks, and it's our networks, whether that's our wireline, whether that's wireless, but also our networks of people, and how we move the world forward is about how technology will move the world forward, but also what we're doing in society. As we think about our brand and how we show up as a brand, we think about how do we show up in a way that's human, that's meaningful, that's simple. And now that gets to your point of some of our ways of working are super complex, and our systems are complex, and the way that people interact with us are complex. So some of that is aspirational. We aspire to be simple. We aspire to make the full experience simple, but we need to make sure that we're stating that so that we can work through how do we make sure that when someone calls us with an issue, they only have to ask us once. They don't have to ask us multiple times. We're not keeping them on hold. So some of it is saying, as a brand, this is who we want to be, but how do we make sure it's, again, we're upholding that in our broader purpose. And as you think about who we are, we could be seen as a utility. We're a telecom, and that comes with it. A lot of people don't like us because they have to pay us a monthly bill. They see us as a means to an end. And, we talk about it all the time of, when everything's going great, I love my iPhone. When things are going bad, you're like, Verizon. How do we make sure that we are bringing that brand love and that people really understand the network? And then we are creating an experience that makes people want to stay with us. It's a super competitive category, and we need to make sure that we're differentiating of why to come to Verizon versus going to T-Mo or certainly to cable companies. So as we think about it is a mix of who we are, being really true to who we are as a brand, but also having those tenets of the brand that are aspirational, that give us that filter for where we want to go, the things we need to fix, what do we need to preserve, what do we need to transform. That's what we think about all the time in the broader company, but also certainly in marketing. As you talk about 5G, sorry, I know I'm going pretty fast. I get very excited about all of this, but for 5G, I'd say this is an area that we continue to evolve. And for the past 3 years, we've talked about the promise of 5G. 5G is going to change the world. 5G is going to change industries. 5G is going to change your life. We have customers saying, what does that mean? What does 5G mean to me? How do we make sure, to your point, that we're talking in a way that's authentic to people, that they understand what will it change? What will it do? What are the reasons to believe that I should get it today? And that's where we are with our campaign today. How do we make it relevant? How do we make sure that people understand, well, we're saying it's going to be so much faster. How much faster? What can I do with it? Well, it's 10 times faster. How do we make sure that we're being really clear about the security versus public Wi-Fi? How do we make sure that we're giving tangible use cases every day versus this, it's going to change the world? People are like, that's great. I'll get it when I need to, but what does it mean for me today? So making sure that we are being very clear, that we're being transparent, but again, we're making it matter to our customers today. And that's really a shift that we've made in our 5G marketing to make sure we're getting a lot more tangible and concrete.
Yeah, it's a wonderful, thoughtful answer. It reminds me of sitting in an office with 5 other business analysts at Booz Allen when I was right out of business school, and I think Isdn had just been introduced, which probably dates me. And one of my colleagues quipped, ISDN means I still don't need it, And at the time, we all thought that was funny because there weren't enough uses for broadband internet that you would pay for an ISDN line. And sometimes I guess that the real world has to catch up with the hype. So, but you have to have been there. I guess that's your point, isn't it? You can't hide out. You've got to claim some of that on its journey. So,
and we need to make sure we're meeting customers where they are, right? Yeah. So we are so excited about the promise of 5G, but they're like, what? So some are certainly, and we got those, the early adopters who understand it, but other customers are saying, well, what does that mean to me, my everyday life? How are you benefiting me? Versus how you're sort of screaming about 5G. So making sure that we're making it relevant, making sure that people are really clear about what it can do for them is really important. And you're right, like there's inertia in any category of, well, okay, I'll get it when I need to, but it doesn't feel like I need it right now. That's why we need to make sure we're super clear about what it's going to do.
And I think we've covered a little bit of, how do the products serve me? Do they deliver? Do you deliver on a promise? And then, in this discussion around 5G, certainly starting to touch on, what have you done for me lately? How can you help me solve my problems? But I think there's a third leg to this stool, at least in, discussing this with you, and something very central to Verizon's philosophy, which is about how the company shows up in the world and what good what your good you do in the world. And I obviously want to give you a chance to talk about what Verizon does and how you think about that. But I also think you're quite sober and thoughtful about how much that really matters, and where it matters and where that balance exists. And I think that's a super important dimension of authenticity, because we can all drink from the Kool-Aid a little bit, when we're talking about some of these things.
Great. And yes, it's so important to all brands today has always been a part of Verizon. And we see what we do in corporate social responsibility and in responsible business as part of our strategy. It's not philanthropy, it's part of our strategy. And we're really focused on 3 key areas as we think about digital inclusion. What we do in the networks that we provide, we have a responsibility to ensure that everyone has connectivity. Again, you think about where we are right now, and certainly where we've been for the past 2 years, but we've been at this for 10 years. So Verizon Innovative Learning is bringing technology to schools that wouldn't have the technology otherwise, and continuing to build that. And this is our 10th year this year, and that the impact that we've had on students and teachers is incredible. And now really expanding that is a focus area of ours. And as we think about climate, critically important as we think about sustainability overall through all of the points of contact within our business, and then human prosperity as we think about the jobs we create and how we really allow societies to prosper. So for us, it is so important to what we do. It is important to as you think about all of our stakeholders, really important that we talk about it, because a lot of people do care, and they do. People want to be with brands and to work with brands that are doing good things in the world, especially if you're paying someone a monthly bill. You want to make sure that someone is doing the right thing, but it's also, what is that company doing for me? And that gets back to the trust. If you're doing amazing things in the world, but you're doing things that break my trust every day, well, that's then inconsistent. So how do you make sure, if you're doing incredible things, which we are, how do we make sure that we're thinking about that through our daily touch points with our customers? That again, we're building that trust for society, but also in the everyday that we work. How do we make sure we're very transparent about the bill, about any charges and fees? How do we make sure that that's super clear? How do we make sure when someone's calling us in customer service that we're answering their call and that we're making sure that we're delivering on their needs? Critically important. So doing amazing things, which we are doing in society, but also doing right by our customers and through every interaction that we have. So again, we don't always get it right, but we need to try, and we need to make sure that we continue to have our focus there.
Yeah, and I have a sense, I'm not sure if you agree, that in a way they are related, because I think consumers could be quite cynical about these claims we make about the good we do in the world, and frankly, whether the good we're doing in the world is purely commercially driven anyway, and whether we really, deliver on our promises in that domain. So if we're not delivering on our promises in, our product delivery or service delivery or billing or whatever it is, there's no more reason, I think, for consumers to trust us that we're delivering on our social purpose as honestly intended as it might be.
Absolutely. And that is the whole root of what you guys are talking about today, about authenticity. If your brand is not authentic and your company's not authentic and your touch points to your customers, they're not going to believe or care about the amazing things that you're doing in the world, because it doesn't feel consistent with who you are. So I think that it all matters, and it all needs to work together so that customers can really see and trust you. And that's, again, what's so core and important for us.
So I want to kind of take this up to a new level of crazy then, Kristen. So,
all right.
You're trying to do all of this, which in and of itself is a very hard job, balancing, translating and promulgating and evangelizing these ideas of trust and innovation across an organization, many elements of which don't control, much of which is very complex and, technically, what's the word, it's all interconnected, and small things can go wrong and rapidly out of control. We're familiar with that world. You have a very unique set of problems, I would argue, running in, the marketing for a telecoms company. It's as I said, I felt the heat of that seat, but now it's got even crazier. Yes. So now you have, this information ecosystem that is full of misleading information. You have your ads popping up on channels you don't necessarily approve, or alongside content that doesn't at all speak to your brand or your voice. You have an ability for anybody to get their minor complaint or issue with your service out into the ether and start creating a new brand impression. So again, how do you start to sort of pass through that and think about how to keep your voice heard and to keep your voice authentic in a world which is sort of set against you in some sense?
It's again a great question, and it is really complex, and I'm lucky to work with some of the best in the business, as and again, all rallying around the same equities and what's important in terms of how our brand shows up. So as we think about brand safety, that's critically important as we think about digital marketing and how our brand is showing up. And if we are very strict about the rules about where our brand can show up, and if our partners will not allow for that, we will not show up in those spaces. Knowing that may impact our business, we make sure that brand safety and the way that the brand is represented comes first. And that's critically important. As we think about social media and how the discussion with customers is amazing, but it does relinquish control for marketers, right? So it used to be one way, and you guys all know that, right? So it used to be like, I'm going to share out the information, but now there's the two-way, and now brands that do not always get along, that are competitive between us and AT&T, and it used to be Sprint and T-Mobile, you can have conversations with brands, you can have conversations with customers in social media, and it's critically important that we uphold our brand and make sure that we are authentic. And you and I were talking a little bit about this the other day, where sometimes, and this happened to us a couple of years ago, where in social media, we got into the mud with Sprint at the time. And we were talking about, they were talking about one thing about the network, we were talking about ours, and we're like, look at us, this is amazing. We're having this battle with Sprint, and we're being so smart, and we're outsmarting them. And customers were like, what are you talking about? We don't care. And it starts to become, how do you make sure that, and in the light of the day, and literally this was during Super Bowl, we were like, what is it? We need to make sure that we're upholding the brand all the time. And we need to make sure that we're not getting into the mud with our competition. And we need to make sure that we're really clear on our voice and on how we show up across all of these channels to make sure that we are authentic in everything that we do, because you can get so fired up as a marketer at someone who believes in your brand so badly when someone might be saying negative things about it. But so important that we uphold that integrity, that we uphold who we are as a brand through everything that we do. And sometimes we may fall off a little bit, but important for us to get right back on, super clear with the teams about how we need to show up and how we show up authentically. As we think about our best campaigns are when we're showing real customers, when we're showing real engineers and the work that we do. And that's what really brings that authenticity. When we start bringing things that are just, we always tend to question, and we do things in campaigns where we're like, is that really us? Is that really how we want to show up? How do we make sure now we pivot back to who we are and show up as the brand that we want to be and that we feel so proud of?
Yeah, well, that's an amazing pivot to a whole other topic, and I know we won't have time, but this, making the employee as the hero and not the brand, not the product person, especially in businesses like yours with so many of those individual touch points. So I'm gonna ask one last question. Then I know we have a host of questions from students that Tina will help moderate, but I always want to take the opportunity when we have senior leaders like you. What do you think the universities are not teaching young graduates and emerging professionals? So, put more positively, when you're hiring someone, what are you looking for that you perhaps think is missing? So not, I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but not the basics. We know digital marketing and all that. But what do you think really distinguishes people, and how might universities help get them there?
It's a great question. And as I look at candidates, which we love candidates from NYU, by the way, so please reach out to our career groups. So someone should put in the chat how you get in touch with Verizon recruiting, is how do we find someone who has the authenticity themselves? So that's what we're talking about here, right? Someone who is genuinely passionate about what they do, about being a lifelong learner, about trying to understand the business and understand marketing and looking for new ways to tackle complex problems, and resilience. Our category is super, super challenging, and you get beat up one day and you got to come up the next day and be ready for action. We talk about it takes a bit of athleticism, right? And how do you make sure that you're ready for what can be a super complex strategic issue, but then also how we get super retail and how we need to deliver for the business. So it requires all sort of functions of the mind to be working at once. And that's what we're looking for from candidates: someone who has that fire, someone who has that curiosity, and someone who is really relentless in their pursuit to drive the business outcomes that we need. When it comes to what universities are teaching, I think you guys are teaching so many capabilities and things that are incredible from what I learned back when I was in undergrad and even in grad school. But I learned a ton at NYU, by the way. But I do think for students, it's also about how to navigate your career. I think you learn so much about the work, which is incredible, about digital marketing, about the functions within marketing, and you become so incredibly smart about the work, which is awesome. But how to navigate your career, how you think about sponsorship, the importance of mentorship, how you think about what to do to take that next role, to take that next risk when it's ready to move from one role into the next, because you need to continue to build your career. That's something that I hope that universities focus on, so that people can help navigate their very long career in marketing.
Fabulous. All right. Well, I'm going to pivot back to Tina, and I know we have some questions from the students in the chat. So thank you so much, Kristen.
Thank you so much.
We get cut off at the end. Thank you so much.
Okay. It was thank you. Great to talk.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. So that actually answered one question, like the career question from the student. So the next question is, we know that Christine, you are the alumni of NYU. So how did you transition from a student to a corporate marketing executive?
Great question. And I do love NYU, and I'm so happy to be talking to you guys again. And for me, I was at the executive program, so I know Michael gave a plug for additional executive programs, which I highly recommend, and I know you guys are certainly all students. During the executive program was super intense, but two of the best years of my career, because I focused really hard on my career and focused really hard on the work that I was doing. What it really allowed me to do as I moved from agency side, and I really see NYU as that sort of center point between agency and when I went to Verizon, it gave me the confidence to really understand business, to really understand all the intricacies from accounting that, again, scared me off in undergrad, but I did well in NYU in accounting, and corporate finance, and to understand how to speak the language. Now with my peers at Verizon, I understand what they're doing. I can't do their job, but I can understand and have a greater appreciation for it, and how to work across a broader ecosystem. The best times I had at NYU were working in teams that had such a diverse group of folks that, it could be an accountant, it could be someone who's in finance, and bringing together the best minds to come up with the best solution. That's what we do every day. So for me, it was taking all of that great learning from NYU, bringing that to Verizon, and I still use it every day, and I still keep in touch with a lot of my classmates from NYU. We still get together virtually. It will be in person again, but really to talk about our accomplishments, to share new opportunities with each other. So it's such an incredible thing and such a great alumni.
Thank you. You really inspire us to be someone like you.
So kind.
So I hope we have a few minutes. So the very last question, what are the most 3 important skills you are looking for from students like us?
It's great. And look, I think the skills you guys will all have. You guys are learning what you need to do. You're going to be better than I could ever be at digital marketing and about a lot of the function areas that you're learning, and continue that. Make sure that you're an expert in what you do and what you can bring to your job. As I think about it, again, it's about resilience. How do we make sure that someone is going to come in, make their voice heard, and if they have a challenging day, how do we make sure they're ready for battle the next day? Curiosity, really understanding the business and understanding marketing, bringing those new perspectives to the table, so important, and being confident to use your voice. We want to learn from new people. We want to learn new ideas, new ways of working. That's what's so exciting about bringing new people to the team. Like we do a lot of things well, but we can always do things better. We can think about marketing programs differently. So making sure that you have the confidence to bring your voice to the table, your expertise to the table, and your ideas to the table, critically important. And that's what I absolutely look for.
Thank you. Those are very valuable career advice to us. So I think we are well on time. So now will pass to Clara, our president, to close this session. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you so much, Tina.
Thank you, Christine and Michael, for this amazing session on authentic engagement, successes and failure from the industry. We're definitely engaged throughout the entire session. So thank you so much for all of these insights and for coming today. So everyone, now we're going to switch again to channel number 2 for our last session of the day, where Nick Tran, the former CMO of TikTok, will talk about innovation and authenticity. Apparently, sometimes you can innovate too hard. So we'll see you in a few, and thank you again, Kristen and Michael.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day, and thanks so much for having me.
Thank you, guys.